Hi, welcome back to the Central PA Property Talk podcast. I'm your host, Brian, and this is our co-host, Chris.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us.
The Central PA Property Talk podcast is produced by 717 Home Buyers in Lancaster. 717 Home Buyers buys houses for cash, but we also want to educate homeowners in our community so they can make better decisions when it's time to sell.
And today's question is a really important one. How do you compare cash offers from home buyers in Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
Right, because most people assume the highest offer is automatically the best offer.
And sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is, but not always. A higher number can look great at first, but the strength of an offer also depends on the contract, the deposit, the closing timeline, the buyer's ability to pay, and whether that buyer is actually going to stand behind the number they gave you.
So we're really talking about the difference between the highest offer and the strongest offer.
That's exactly it.
You recently talked with Austin Glanzer, co-owner of 717 Home Buyers, about a real situation that illustrates this, right?
Yes, Austin told us about a homeowner in Montgomery County, outside Philadelphia. We'll call him Craig for privacy.
Okay.
Craig was an older gentleman who owned an older house. The property needed quite a few repairs, and those repairs just kept costing him money. At some point, the house stopped feeling like an asset and started feeling like a burden.
That happens a lot with older homes. One thing breaks, then another thing breaks, and suddenly you're constantly putting money into the property.
Exactly. Craig decided he wanted to sell and get out from under it. Before he spoke with 717 Home Buyers, he had already received 6 different offers.
6 offers?
6. 717 was the 7th.
So he had plenty of options.
He did, and here's what makes the story interesting. Some of the other offers were about $8,000 or $9,000 higher than the offer from 717.
Then why didn't he take one of those?
Because Craig wasn't just comparing the price, he was comparing the entire offer and the people behind it.
Walk us through that.
First, Craig wanted his attorney to review everything.
Which is completely reasonable.
Absolutely, a homeowner should be allowed to understand the agreement before signing it. 717 had no problem with Craig involving his attorney.
And I'm guessing not every buyer was as comfortable with that.
Apparently not. Craig also wanted earnest money.
Let's explain what that means.
Earnest money is a deposit the buyer puts down to show that they're serious about completing the deal. The amount can vary, but the important thing is that the buyer has something committed to the deal.
So if somebody's offering a big number but won't put down any meaningful deposit, that should at least raise a question.
Yes, it doesn't automatically mean the offer is bad, but it's something the seller should evaluate. What else mattered to Craig? He asked for proof of funds. In other words, proof that the buyer actually had the money needed to close. Right, anybody can write a number on a piece of paper. Proof of funds helps establish that the buyer has the financial ability to follow through. That seems like one of the most basic questions a seller should ask. It is, and a legitimate buyer shouldn't become irritated just because a homeowner asks reasonable questions about money, experience, or reputation.
What about the contract itself?
This was another important part of Craig's decision. He wanted to use a contract that came from his side rather than automatically using the buyer's standard agreement.
And 717 was open to that?
Yes. Of course, they had their own attorneys review it before agreeing to anything, which is normal, but they didn't tell Craig that he had no choice and had to use only their paperwork.
That flexibility probably built a lot of trust.
It did. Craig could see that they weren't trying to rush him past his questions. They were willing to explain things, provide documentation, involve his attorney, and put real earnest money into the agreement.
And then there was the closing timeline.
Right. Some of the other offers had higher headline prices, but 717 could provide a faster and more dependable closing plan.
So Craig had to decide whether an extra $8,000 or $9,000 on paper was worth the additional uncertainty.
That's the real decision. A higher offer is valuable only if the buyer actually closes at that price and within the timeline you need.
Let's say one buyer offers $200,000 and another offers $192,000. The first one obviously looks better.
It does, but then you have to read the terms. Does the $200,000 offer include a long inspection period? Can the buyer cancel easily? Are they relying on another partner to approve the deal? Is there a financing contingency? Can they reduce the offer after someone finally visits the house?
That last one sounds like a big issue.
It can be. Austin said homeowners should be cautious about offers that arrive before anyone has actually seen the property.
Like a phone call or a letter that says, "We'll pay up to this much for your house."
Exactly. The number may sound impressive, but sometimes it's only a preliminary estimate. Then a representative visits the property, points out the roof, foundation, plumbing, electrical work, or cleanup, and the offer drops significantly.
So the seller may think they have the highest offer, but they don't actually know the final number yet.
That's right. A more dependable process is for the buyer to visit the property, understand its condition, and then provide an offer they're prepared to stand behind.
Does that mean an offer should never change?
Not necessarily. New information can come up. A serious title problem, incorrect property information, or something that was hidden and genuinely unknown could affect a deal. But sellers should ask when the offer becomes firm and what circumstances allow it to change.
That's an important question. Under exactly what conditions can you lower this price?
Yes, and get the answer in writing whenever possible.
What other questions should a homeowner ask when comparing offers?
Ask who is actually buying the property. Ask whether the company intends to purchase it themselves or assign the contract to another investor. Ask who pays closing costs. Ask whether there are commissions or service fees. Ask what happens if the buyer fails to close. Ask how much earnest money they're willing to provide and when it becomes non-refundable.
And ask for proof of funds.
Definitely. Also, ask about the closing date and whether that date is guaranteed or only a target.
Reputation matters too.
It does, especially local reputation. Look for feedback from people in your city, county, and surrounding area. Check Google reviews, Better Business Bureau information, and whether the company has a consistent history in the region.
So we're not saying a national company is automatically bad.
No, and a local company isn't automatically trustworthy just because it's local, but a strong local reputation should be seriously considered. A buyer who regularly works in Lancaster County or the surrounding region may have a better understanding of local neighborhoods, property conditions, repair costs, title practices, and realistic resale values.
And there's also accountability. A local company has a reputation to protect in the same community where it works.
Exactly. Ask the buyer about their reviews. Ask for references if you need them. Ask how many properties they've actually closed locally. A trustworthy company should not become defensive because you're checking them out.
I think homeowners sometimes feel uncomfortable asking those questions.
They do, but this is a major financial decision. You're not being difficult, you're doing reasonable due diligence.
Let's come back to Craig. He had 6 earlier offers, some of them higher, but he chose the 7th offer because it gave him more confidence.
Right, the value wasn't only in the purchase price, it was also in the willingness to provide proof of funds, put down earnest money, allow attorney review, consider Craig's contract, answer questions, and offer a quicker, more reliable closing.
So, what is the simplest way to compare cash offers?
I'd use 4 categories: price, terms, certainty, and trust. Break those down. Price is the amount you expect to receive after any fees or deductions. Terms are the conditions in the contract, including inspection periods, cancellation rights, closing costs, and anything that allows the buyer to renegotiate. Certainty is the buyer's financial ability, proof of funds, earnest money, and realistic closing plan. And trust is the buyer's reputation, communication, transparency, and willingness to answer your questions.
That seems much more useful than just putting 7 offer prices in a row.
It is. And to be fair, if the highest offer also has strong terms, good earnest money, verified funds, and a dependable buyer, then taking the highest offer may make perfect sense. The point isn't to reject the biggest number, it's to verify it. Exactly. A strong offer should survive reasonable questions. What's the main takeaway for someone in Lancaster who has 2 or 3 cash offers in front of them right now? Don't ask only who offered the most, ask how much will I actually receive, what can change, who has the money, what happens if they back out, and which buyer has given me the most credible path to closing. And take enough time to understand the agreement. Yes,
Consider having an attorney review it, especially if anything is unclear. A legitimate buyer should respect your desire to understand what you're signing.
And if somebody's pressuring you not to ask questions,
That's a reason to slow down, not speed up. Well said. If you're comparing cash offers for a house in Lancaster or elsewhere in central Pennsylvania, you can call 717 Homebuyers at 717-321-SOLD or visit 717homebuyers.com. They can look at the property, explain their offer, and answer your questions without pressure.
thanks for listening to the Central PA Property Talk podcast.
Be sure to check out our other podcasts and videos and subscribe, like, or follow for more practical information about selling a house in Pennsylvania. We hope you have a great day. Thanks again for listening.